Hi guys, my name is Seb Tudor, I'm the man on the Silver Mountain, and welcome back. Now today I want to talk about freedom of speech. Excuse me. And one of the things that I want to talk about in regards to freedom of speech is some stuff that we've been seeing recently and around stuff like these deepfakes things, um, and around fair use and around kind of openness in regards to freedom of speech in other ways. This is obviously something that was touched on in my the rundown of the Jordan Peterson interview I did earlier in the week as well. And so I wanted to kind of get into this a little because I've talked about freedom of speech before and how important it is, but how it differs in different places and all that kind of thing. But now I want to talk about it in maybe a more general sense, but around some more specific topics. In which case, what do I mean by freedom of speech? I mean the freedom to say and express myself in whatever means I so wish, as long as it doesn't infringe on various laws. For instance, copyright laws, or in the UK where I am, obviously we've got more laws around kind of incitement to violence, and in regards to things like the one that I always enjoy quoting is the one where if you suggest that the royal family just shouldn't exist anymore, if the monarchy should go, then it's not an enforced law, but it's a law that can have you fined, arrested, whatever else. And so there's a limit, but it's for the most part a very open thing. You can say what you want, and it's up to me to say what I wish, and to express how I wish to express. And if someone else is offended, then fine, they're allowed to be offended. If someone else is not enjoying that, then again, they're allowed to do that, but that's on them, not me, because they get to choose to be offended. I can go out of my way to try and offend someone, something that I don't really like doing. It seems a bit crass, but I can go out of my way to try and offend someone, but it's still on them as to whether or not they take the bait. It's pretty straightforward. It's all internal. And so as a result, some of these things that have come up, obviously we had the Jordan Peterson interview a little while ago, which I covered, but then in terms of broader free speech, there was a very important point there where he highlights that if it weren't for freedom of speech being used, the interviewer Kathy Newman wouldn't be able to potentially offend him, which she is more than happy to try and do, and make him uncomfortable, to probe, get to the truth, find out what needs to be found out, and talk. So if she didn't have that freedom of speech because he was uncomfortable, because he found it offensive, because it was upsetting, she wouldn't be able to do her job. As someone who asks questions that sometimes can be very, very sensitive, like in terms of the topic that they're addressing, if I didn't have the ability to ask those questions in the way that I asked them, as I agree with my clients when I first sit down with them and take them on as a client in the first place anyway, then there's a good chance that we wouldn't really accomplish anything. We wouldn't get anywhere with what we're doing. And so, it's that highlighted issue the brings me to go, freedom of speech is a good thing. Freedom of speech should be protected for everybody. If you don't like something that someone has read on Facebook, guess what? You can unfollow them, you can block them, you can remove them as a friend, you can do all of those things. Even if it's on a public page, you can still remove yourself from the page. You can still do whatever. If there's someone that you've subscribed to on YouTube and they start saying things that you don't like, fine, unsubscribe. That's entirely your right. It's the reason why the tool is there and why subscriptions can be on and off. It's not purely because once you've subscribed, you do not just have to stick around. You do not have to buy into what that person is saying. You do not have to do anything else. For instance, as I've said numerous times before, I watch on YouTube things like Rebel Media and the Young Turks. Why? Because I'm looking for their perspectives from the crazy that they spout to then break down where they're coming from based on the facts as many other news sources as I can find reporting on the things that they're reporting on. The clickbaity headlines, the obvious political leanings of the people involved, All of those things are things that I take into account as a result of watching those two things. Do I buy into those ideologies? No, not to any reasonable or realistic extent, because I sit very much more towards the centre than either the left or right of these of the main kind of political axis. But also, you've got these two media sources that are both sat so far on each edge that they are nearly falling off. In which case, though, what it comes down to is, yeah, I'm able to watch that stuff. Some of the stuff I really disagree with. Some of the stuff I really don't like. But it doesn't mean that I'm going to start ranting and raving at them to change. They can do whatever the hell they want. They can say whatever the hell they want. If I don't like it, if it gets to a point where I just can't take it anymore, it's all too crazy, or that I'm not looking for their input anymore so that I can break down the extremes as I look towards the stuff in the centre, just in case there are any gems of knowledge, information, or useful ideas amongst what the crazy stuff is that they're saying, then, you know, I can unsubscribe. And then I will never see their videos again. You know, I can quite happily just remove them from my sphere. Little echo chamber I can make for myself. Not that I would ever really want to do that, but I can. And so can anyone else. In which case, freedom of speech is firstly a hell of a lot easier to maintain these days, because you're in a world where if you don't want to hear it, if you're too sensitive, if you're too easily upset by things, if you don't want to control the way that you allow things to upset you or otherwise, or if it just becomes too taxing for you, then simple. Block, unfollow, remove, unsubscribe, whatever. Power's all in your hands. You don't need to infringe on other people or rant at them just because they've said something you don't like, because you quite happily have the power just to remove them. You know, it's if you hang around long enough, YouTube will just do it for you. You know, they'll just unsubscribe you on behalf of the algorithm's better conscience, should we say? Which I've had a couple of you guys saying that seems to have stopped in regards to my channel, at least for the moment. So that makes me glad for the few of you that had been unsubscribed and then had come back. So firstly, thank you for coming back. But then let's move on to the next issue, and that is fair use. Now, fair use is a bit more complicated, and it ultimately comes down to things like transformative elements applied to a pre-existing piece to create something new. So having an image and then, I don't know, the Mona Lisa, and then recoloring it neon, and then doing something else with it, I don't know, animating it. That would be transformative. You know, that's something that changes it. Applying meaning to it through meme text, things like that, could also be considered a transformative thing. And, you know, we've seen memes coming under fire. We've seen people ranting and raving about stuff. One of the ones that I've actually been quite enjoying watching at the moment, which is the whole Ugandan Knuckles thing, much to the chagrin of Hannah, is, to me, just great. It's hilarious. It's this viral kind of flash mob in a virtual space built from various media from across the entire globe. You know, it's this confluence of stuff that just it's funny. People can have a good time with it. People can then transmute it into whatever else they want. For example, I believe there's the is it Bliat Knuckles, the Russian Knuckles that rumbles around in a Ushanka hat. You know, you've got all of those kind of things all over the place, and they're fascinating to me. They're terrific. They're hilarious in all kinds of different ways. And, you know, you've even got the people who were behind the films, that the lines that the Knuckles spout, going, oh wow, they found our stuff and they've turned it into something else that's cool and new. Great. In which case, you know, that's transformative in both a kind of obvious physical way, but also in a performance way, and in an appreciation and homage kind of way, in all these other different elements. And yet there are people that want to attack those, suppress those, limit those. And there's a guy called Peter Thompson who does all kinds of bits and pieces around marketing and stuff like that. And I went to one of his seminars with my dad at one point, and one of the things that he said, because this was a question that was thrown his way, was if you've taken pictures and you find someone else that's using them for whatever it is, best chance is just let it go. You know, emulation is one of the highest forms of flattery, as is imitation, in which case if someone's using your picture and they've just maybe changed it slightly or they've done something else, let them have it. Just don't, you know, you can maybe go and ask for a credit, but if they don't give you a credit, fair enough. If they're doing whatever else, then fine, but as long as they're not dragging you through the muck as a result of highlighting your work or something, which then could span out into things like libel or slander or other situations around that. Otherwise, just let them have it. Because when it comes to those arguments around things like fair use and stuff like that, you will waste time, waste energy, and not get anywhere. Because all they would need to do is make a couple of substantive kind of changes to it, and it could then be argued as being transformative in some way. Let it roll. Let it go ahead. There's a slight difference for things like video, obviously, but it still comes down to, if it's in the public domain, if it's something that they've been able to tack onto, then there's a good chance that it's altered, modified, done, showcased in such a way that it's transformative. You know, and this is the case of people using small clips that are covered under fair use as part of commentary or critique as well. It's using it to represent an idea that is being discussed and therefore is transformative in nature, rather than just a complete rehash or a re-upload, as it were. And so this is where I want to get to the deepfakes thing, this huge controversy, because I saw this a while ago when they were first doing these neural network created kind of paste, like copying across rather, of someone else's mouth movements and facial movements onto people like Trump and Obama. And it was really interesting to watch, because it's the stuff of sci-fi. You know, oh, well, I'm just going to make myself look like and sound like someone else so that I can then go and do this thing and make them say and do whatever I want them to do. So there's that element to it, which I just find fascinating. But then, of course, what's one of the first places that people are going to go and use that? Well, porn. So, you know, this was the problem on the Reddit that has now been shut down, and this is the problem on a whole load of other places as well, which has then been highlighted as, oh, well, we're banning all of it. We're banning all of these things. And the reasoning, though, that they give is one of consent. And this is where I feel their argument breaks down, because the person in the video is evidently not, or the person who's had their face tagged on to whichever porn star in the video is evidently not in the video. You know, deep fake is usually in the title of these things. In which case, they're not in the video. It would be almost like saying that a lookalike in the video that is then being referred to as so-and-so person, I don't know, Marilyn Monroe, for instance, as just one plucked from history, so that they're not alive currently to argue the toss. But you could go, okay, well, Marilyn Monroe takes it from JFK in the Oval Office, porn parody or whatever, and that's, you know, neither here nor there. These people just happen to be still alive, very potentially quite sensitive to these things, especially after things like the fappening and all that kind of thing, where actual theft occurred. You know, that's an issue, because it's actual theft. It's taking something from someone without permission. Here, though, you've got the program, or the fake app, whatever it is, program that they're using, And then they've got the large collection of images of these celebrities, which rather unsurprisingly are in the public domain because they're in magazines, they're from TV shows that they're in, they're from all over the place. In which case then, public domain in regards to some of the pornography that's being used, public domain in regards to the pictures of the celebrities that are being used, they are being used in a transformative way. And so as a result, arguably, there's a case here for fair use. Same way as there would be for the tech demo of making Obama and Trump say things that they had never said. You know, it stands out that that's still a thing. And so this is where I feel some of these websites, if ever this continues to grow and emerge, which, let's face it, is the internet, it will. The biggest issue is that they can try and block it in terms of consent. They can try and block it in terms of abuse. They can try and block it in terms of all these things. And yet, if it ever goes to court, it's public domain stuff being used to create a new piece of work that is literally transformative. It literally turns someone from one person to another person for the purposes of the media. And so as a result, lots of people are quoting freedom of speech at the moment in defense of this stuff. And as much as I don't feel like this is a good use of the technology, you know, as I said, this is groundbreaking sci-fi stuff. I would much prefer to see this kind of tech being used so that we don't get another plastic layer in a Star Wars film, or so that we could bring back, I don't know, characters from movies that we're probably never going to get a sequel to because the lead actor has died. You know, stuff like that. I would much prefer to see it being used for that kind of entertainment rather than just porn. But saying that, everything begins in porn. Look at the VR at the moment. Games, porn. If we're going to get a VR storytelling experience in terms of a movie, in terms of TV shows that are purely focused in VR where you are living in the story, then it's going to have to come from gaming or porn. Or possibly from a spin-off from military tech that's using this stuff as well. Those are the places at the moment where the world is growing most. Military, porn, gaming. And gaming, even so, is still kind of forward 2 steps, back 1, you know, at various points, depending on what people are then trying to do with the tech to make money. So it's going to be interesting to see how this continues to pan out. But I wanted to address this because everyone has the right to say what they want, but everyone also has the right to do what they want. In which case, when it comes to you feeling offended, you have the right to feel that way, but you don't have the right to tell someone off for it. Because the feeling of offence is on you, and you, especially in the modern world, have the capacity to remove yourself from every single form of media that could at all hurt your feelings or otherwise cause you discomfort and upset. In regards to the deepfake things, though, that are the most controversial thing that I've talked about at the moment, I'm yet to see any real information come from any of the celebrities featured, because there are some of them that would definitely be against this, but there are some of them that I would like to hear the opinions of, considering other stuff that they have done. You know, it's going to be interesting to see if it gets to that point. I don't think it will, just because how aggressive the pushback against these things has been since they've been highlighted. But you know, we'll have to see. As said, I would like to see this being used for different overall results, but the fact that it's being used for this at the moment and the way that it's being used, there's nothing that I can see that suggests that it shouldn't be still used in this way, that it should be shut down in this fashion. You know, it just seems like it's almost one rule for one people and one rule for another, as far as freedom of speech goes. But as said, we'll have to see how it pans out. I'd like to see it be shifted around. I've seen a couple of comments going, the Reddit got shut down for everything, both the not safe for work stuff and the safe for work stuff. Could we not have a well policed safe for work one back, where we can highlight the technology and the way that it's used, and the kind of safe for work aspects on it, like using it for a movie or a TV show, as opposed to anything else? You know, could we not do that? So we'll have to see if that happens or if it pans out. But anyway, I'd love to hear what your thoughts are, especially around the kind of fair use versus consent argument that's being thrown around at the moment in regards to the deepfake stuff. Because, you know, obviously, I'd imagine that there are a fair number of you that are focused very much on freedom of speech, considering the way that a lot of my videos go in regards to evidence and backing stuff up and just adhering to the law and otherwise just going with it. But I'd be interested to hear what you guys think in regards to this, where you've had someone's face just pasted onto someone else's body, and if it was a Photoshop, it would be transformative. But considering it's a piece of film, it's not. Considering it's a film, it's consent, apparently. But anyway, guys, as said, I'd love to hear your thoughts. And otherwise, I will see you in the video tomorrow. Take care. Thank you very much for watching, guys. If you enjoyed this video, then please drop us a like, share this video, and subscribe for more. And I'll see you in the video tomorrow. Take care.